This Shabbos, in addition to the fact that Shabbos Parshas Tetzaveh, we're going to be reading the Parshas Zachor, which is one of the four parshas that we read in this time of year. Last week we had an extra Sefer Torah brought out, in addition to the extra Sefer Torah brought out for Rish Chodesh, we also had one from Parshas Shkolim. Now, because the Shabbos before Purim, we're going to also read from the Torah having to do with the ancestor of Haman and Rasha, which is Amalek, and we're going to read about him and the mitzvah to eradicate Amalek in the Torah. B'siyat Shmaya Shabbos Parshas Tetzaveh, Parshas Zachor, Tavshim Mem. This is a mimer from 1985. Also Shabbos Parshas Tetzaveh. Zachor Shaslucha Amalek B'derech B'tzeis Mitzrayim. Remember what Amalek did to you on the road going out of Mitzrayim. Asher Karcha, that he met you, Gomer. You are parched and thirsty and tired. You're not fear Hashem. When it'll be when Hashem will let you have comfort from your enemies and those that want to attack you. So then Timcha Zecher Amalek B'tachas Hashemayim, eradicate the memory of Amalek from under the heavens. Lo tishkach, do not forget. It's known the analysis of this in the Mamorim of Rabbi Marnasi. What's the reason that we make such a great tumult, such a big deal from the war of Amalek, more so than the rest of the nations? Though by the other nations in Eretz Yisrael, it also says it also says, should not let any soul live, because of the worry that they will make Yidden sin and follow their ways of idolatry. So even the nations in Eretz Yisrael you have to eradicate. So still in all, specifically by Amalek, it says, remember what he did to you. Why this great big deal that we have to remember what he did and so on. Also another thing that we find that we don't find by the other nations, that it has to be a total eradication. You need to totally erase Amalek. As it says, it doesn't use that by any of the nations that we have to destroy that are in the land of Canaan, for example. It doesn't use the term to completely erase them. Over here it says, Amalek. And not only that, we read it in the Sefer Torah. The Minhag Chabad is to pronounce it both Zecher B'Segel, Zecher B'Segel, Zecher B'Tzeder, to use both Nekudas just to make sure that we get it right in both ways. That should be the correct way done. Va'adis with Medrash, until it's even brought down the Medrash, Shema Amalek Niskar al Fidla Behema, that the name of Amalek should not even mentioned on an animal. Loimer Behema Zum Shal Amalek Haisa. People will say that this animal was at one time belonged to Amalek. Gamel Zeshal Amalek. This camel was from Amalek, etc. And not only do we find that living beings have the idea that we have to eradicate any name of Amalek associated with them, until we find the custom amongst Yidden. Also, the name of Amalek that's mentioned on inanimate things, we should erase it. What the Rebbe is referring to is the minhag that's brought down that children would write the name of Amalek on sticks and on stones, and then they would knock the sticks and the stones against each other until the name Amalek would be completely erased. So we find this idea of Amalek being so much necessary to have it eradicated. Then also when you understand Mashakasu, but Derech says, and again that's unusual by Amalek, different than any other type of Jewish enemy that we're incumbent to fight. We don't have this idea of completely eradicating any memory of them, that they cannot even be mentioned on any item. Also we need to understand where it says, on the way while you went out of Mitzrayim. Or in a different place it says, on the road going up from Mitzrayim. In other words, where he speaks about the mitzvah of getting rid of Amalek, and makes sure to emphasize the idea of the Yidden going out of Mitzrayim was the time when Amalek attacked us. What's the connection between Amalek with going out of Mitzrayim? There's other nations that attacked us, let's say in the wilderness. Midian attacked us. There was a Sichar, whatever. But the Amalek, we make a special emphasis that it was on the way going out of Mitzrayim. Obviously, there's something about Amalek's attack that's something specific and uniquely connected with going out of Mitzrayim. Gam Tzor Lom knows when we understand what's the idea of erasing and eradicating Amalek in the spiritual. Why are we talking about the spiritual? Let's just be happy with the physical eradication of Amalek. Who says we need to understand what it is in the spiritual? So he says, especially so that when it comes to the physical Amalek, his eradication was only very few times in history when we had the actual war against Amalek. Very few times. Like it says, it'll be when Hashem releases you from all your enemies around you, so then you have to deal with Amalek. In other words, up until then, they didn't deal with Amalek. The once this took place in the days of Shaul HaMelech, where Shmuel told Shaul to go ahead and get rid of the nation of Amalek. And prior to the days of Shaul, this took place in the times of Moshe and Yeshua that we learned that we read about in Parshas Zachor. Upam Shlishis, and the third time, Yibadar the Malkadim Shicha will be in the generation of the King Mashiach. Kedisu b'Targum Yonis Al Pasik, Mechamel Lashem b'Amalek Medordor. The Targum Yonis on the Pasik that there was a war and a battle of Hashem and Amalek from generation to generation. Why does it have to repeat generation twice? Could have just said in every generation. So he says there is Koi Gam Al Dora de Mashiach, from the generation of Moshe Rabbeinu till the generation of Mashiach will be the war against Amalek. So it's really very few times when we actually fought Amalek. Therefore, one must understand why do we need to have, what's the reason for the warning? Remember what Amalek did to you, with the double, with repetition, not just remember, but do not forget. So obviously, if there's such a great emphasis for something that would take place only very few times, there must be also a spiritual component that the Torah is warning us to be careful, to remember, not to forget. Since it's a part of the everlasting Torah movement, it's understood that this is an everlasting lesson and directive in the Avodah of Hashem, always, every single day. So in other words, in addition to the physical Amalek that we need to eradicate, there is a spiritual Amalek that we face daily that we need to eradicate, and we need to remember, not forget, and so on. Second paragraph on the page. Well, Havim calls out to be able to understand all of this. Yesh lahagdim when it comes to the war against Amalek. It says, he attacked you at the end, all those that were like following after you. The Rebbe picks out the word acharecha, behind you, and he says the war against Amalek, he didn't come on a frontal attack. He came from behind, those that were behind. What does that mean? So in Avodas Hashem, there's two ways of serving Hashem: with the panim, with our face, or our back. When a person's avoid is only dealing and having the level of the back, so that's where Amalek can attack. He cannot attack us face on. It's known the difference between the face and the back, the front and the back. Though a person's body, also from the back, it has 248 limbs and 365 blood vessels and sinews, etc. Just completely like from the front. On the front side, Ugili pnimius ha'adam. The revelation ponim is also the word pnimius. The inner part of the person is revealed. Shesham nekarim begali heivarim v'chol. Over there, the limbs and the functions of the limbs are more recognizable. The person's humanity and intellect and emotions and all these things express themselves and reveal themselves through the front, including his speech and his vision and so on. Mash'enkein b'tzad ha'acharayim, as opposed to the back of the person, the side of the person's back, inisham ein ha'pnimius begalui. Over there, the inner level of the person is not revealed. Rak ha'chetzoini is only the external part. In other words, the physicality of the back is there. You see a body, but you don't see his emotions, you don't see his intellect, it's not expressed, you don't hear him speaking. If he's back to you, he's probably not talking to you, etc. So none of the functions really happen in the back. Now, so the Rebbe says, so there is the spiritual level of the back, that is in a similar vein, somewhere that allows for the spiritual amolik to attack. When a person's avodah is in a way that he's only doing it in an external fashion, he's not doing it in a way of his inner being is invested in it. From this occurs those that are being nachshalim after you. What is nachshalim? So nachshalim loshen chalishus. Nachshalim is from the word weakness. Ad lechalishus shebachalishus, until a weakness of weakness. Besignan acher, or a different means of expressing this, hu inyan hashena, it's the idea of sleep. That when a person is sleeping in his avodas Hashem, it is inviting Amalek to attack spiritually. Just like during sleep, a person is fully alive. He is no less alive when he's asleep than when he's awake. Still in all, there is almost no life and vitality manifest. Only a small amount of chayis is the lashon of the Chassidus brings down. So too, when a person is doing his avodah, but in the way of acharayim, in the way of the back, and not in the way of the ponim, and not in the way of the pnimius. So he says, just like we said that in the back you could have all the 248 limbs complete, and all the 365 sinews and veins, and etc. Spiritually, he has in the back all the 248 positive commandments and all the 365 negative commandments. Still in all, it's in a way that he's doing it by rote, he's doing it out of habit. There is belichais, without any passion, without any vitality. Like we said, when a person is asleep, there is very little passion, energy, and vitality manifest. Not only that, this person that is functioning in the way of the back, he could be also being fulfilling this mitzvah. Al shemekayim gam mitzvahs zachor shas chamalek. He fulfills also the mitzvah of remember what Amalek does to you. Now, part of that mitzvah is that we have at the end of Aleinu in the Shachris that says over there, one of the Sheish Schiris, the 6 remembrances that people recite every day, is zachor shas chamalek. So he does it. He pays lip service to it. But the Rebbe says not only lip service, loidak, but he doesn't only remember it by saying the words elegam balev. He also understands what he's saying. Al shemekayim gam mitzvah zachor shas chamalek. He fulfills. I'm sorry. Next line. I'm sorry. Hainu loidak shemeh parshas zachor, or not if he's reading the Sheish Schiris, but not only does he listen to parshas zachor, which is considered. When a person listens, so al pi halacha, it's considered as if he actually voiced it. When he's in shul and he's listening to Parshas Zachor, so then he's also thinking about the meaning of the words. And we call Malcolm still in all, the mitzvah, it's still done in a way of, he's doing it by rote, he's doing it out of habit. So he connects this problem with what Amalek attacks. Umetam zeh amolik umeloshen umolak es roishay mul orfoi. It says about in parts of Vayikra where it talks about offerings that you bring from birds. It says you will cut off its head facing its neck, not like by shchita, where shchita is done from the front of the throat, but rather the neck of the bird is separated. The inyan amalika machoriya tzavar davke loike shchita, the idea of malika that's used in the carbonas of the birds, they are only from the back of the neck, and not like shchita. Why is that? Why is Amalek related with malika, which is done from the back? Where can Amalek grab hold of a person? How can Amalek negatively influence the person when a person's service is specifically in the back? That's where Amalek can grab onto. Just like we started saying at the beginning, Hanachsholim acharecha, when it's those that are behind you, those that are in the back of you, that's where Amalek can attack. When a person in the service is in the way of the back without vitality, then Amalek comes and wants to do the idea of Malika, just like the literal idea of Malika is separating the head from the body. So too it's the matter of Amalek that he separates between the head and the body. What does that mean? So he's going to explain right now. The idea of the head in the service of Hashem is the intellect, understanding, explanation. According to the appropriate order of things. The head is the way is literally what it means. A head leads. That he runs the body, and influences all matters of the body. Until even the power of action is in the body, even though it's the lowest power, but still in all Ikar, action is primary. So the head that's supposed to be an appropriate head runs every part of the body, including and primarily, the most importantly, he controls the action. But Amalek is about splitting off the head from the body. Through this cutting of the head off, Amalek makes a separation between the head and the body. This means though the body is complete, and the head is complete. But when you split it apart, there's no connection between them. The contemplation of the head, the understanding of the head, does not influence on the way the entire body runs. So you have the body, which is made up of all the different limbs and organs, of all the Torah mitzvahs, but the head has no influence on it to inspire it, to enliven it. That was what Amalek was about, that he wanted to affect in the Eden, the separation between the level of the head in their service of Hashem, their understanding of the service of Hashem, to the level of the body. He wanted that their understanding, contemplation of the head should not influence the way the bodies run, and the body can perhaps do things that are not in accordance with the head, not in accordance with Torah mitzvahs. Until it says, and he was at your tail. Not only does he separate the head from the body, he made in you a tail. What does that mean? A tail is the lowest part of the body. Now, there's nothing lower than the tail. Like it's known, the expression of Chazal, when Chazal want to describe two things that have no comparison one to another, we give the example of the head and the tail, the famous thing that we have in Pirkei Avos. it's better to be, let's say, a tail of the lions and the head of foxes, etc. So whatever, there's the tails and the head is two opposites. So instead of the head being connected to the body, Amalek is vayizanev b'cha. Amalek turns a person into a tail, the least feeling, the least influence, the least connected with the head as much as possible. And the whole idea of the head is completely ancillary and of no significance, and instead of leading, it becomes a follower and of insignificance. That's what Amalek affected the Yidden, that he made you into a tail instead of being a head to run the body. And this itself, that he made the separation between the head and the body. There are different aspects to this. As we know, Amalek makes a person cold and ambivalent and indifferent in their service of Hashem. Should be completely without any passion. Like it's brought down the Medrash. Why does it say that he met you in the road? It's a very strange thing. Amalek didn't just happen upon us. He wasn't just walking along and he saw the Yidden there. So the word karcha, which means literally met, doesn't really make any sense. So the Medrash says karcha is from the word kar, kriris is from the word coldness. V'gam, another aspect of Amalek is Amalek b'gematria safek. Amalek is the numerical equivalent of Safek. Amalek is 240, and the same thing, Safek is 240. What's the significance? Sheba umatel svekes b'daitoi, that Amalek comes and throws doubts into a person's mind. V'ad betachsa yedided Amalek, until the ultimate descent of Amalek, u'bechinas hadas de le'umazeh. Amalek is the idea of das, of klippa. We know that in Kedusha, das is what joins and unites and causes that the intellect should give birth to the emotions. And das of klippa is just the opposite, that the emotions, positive emotions, shouldn't come there. The alei itmar, concerning the das of klippa, it says, Keilacher status le'ovid peirin, that it's a foreign god that is not fruitful, that does not give forth any fruit. It acts as an opponent to Kedusha, the type of birth. Last paragraph on this page. With this will be understood why the war against Amalek was specifically when they went out of Mitzrayim, like we said, that the pasuk emphasizes b'derech b'tzeischem Mitzrayim. Why? What's the connection with Mitzrayim? Though at the time when they went out of Mitzrayim, it was a very great revelation. It was a revelation of Hashem's very essence. Like it's known, the explanation of the Rebbe Rashab, that in the Haggadah it says that Kadosh Baruch Hu b'chvoide be'atzmai came ugeolam. That Atsheba Kadosh Baruch Hu b'chvoide be'atzmai ugeolam. Hashem came in His own glory and essence to redeem the Yidden. So the Rebbe Rashab says, what's the significance of the terminology b'chvoide be'atzmai? The b'chvoide Malchus de Ein Sof. His glory, that's the level of Malchus of Ein Sof. Malchus is associated with the level of kavod, like we say, Baruch Shem Kivoid Malchus Elohim Void. The fact that it's Kvoidoi, we're talking about a very high level of Malchus of Hashem's infinite essence. Uba'atzmai, what is His very essence? He Tiferes the Ein Sof Shlifnei Tzimtzum. That's the sphere of Tiferes of the Ein Sof prior to the Tzimtzum. Mikol Mokim, despite the fact that it was such a great revelation, so how did Amalek was able to have a handhold to be able to attack the Yidden spiritually after such an amazing revelation? This revelation was only from above and did not come about through a person's service. Therefore, it did not permeate the person on his own. Like it says, that I took you out from the land of Mitzrayim. That Hashem says, I was the one that took you out. The Yidden leaving from Mitzrayim was not their own doing, and therefore did not permeate the person, because for something to permeate a person, it needs to come from themselves. Like it's explained in Tanya, for this reason it says when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, that the nation ran away. At the beginning of Parshas Beshalach, at the end of Parshas Beshalach, it says Zachor. The beginning of Parshas Beshalach says that Pari ran after the Yidden because they ran away. Why did they run away? Why, in other words, Moshe Rabbeinu seemed to indicate to Paroi that this was only a temporary thing, that the Yidden were going out into the wilderness to serve Hashem. Why did they need to have and do such subterfuge? Pari, if they would have told Pari he was scared that he was a b'choyer and he was going to die, that we're going to leave for good, he wouldn't have let them go, Dal Terabas and Tanya. But rather, the reason why the nation had to run away was not because of the fear of Pari, but the fear of the nation themselves. The bad within the Jewish people, the Nefesh Bahamis of the Yid, despite the great revelation, but it was from above, it didn't permeate them. So therefore the bad in the Yidden was still in its full force. Because the Yidden then was in a state that their Emunah was in a minor state, a very low state. The level that's called the back, like we spoke about before, and because the godly revelation that took place in Yetzias Mitzrayim didn't permeate them, they were liable to return to Mitzrayim if they would have thought that they're going for longer. So Moshe Rabbeinu had to say the whole idea about going away of 3 days into the wilderness, even though they were going to go for longer. He didn't actually lie. That's a whole different discussion. But the point is that the Yidden wouldn't have been able to hear that they're leaving Mitzrayim for good, because spiritually they weren't there yet, despite the great revelation. So because spiritually they were still in a very low spiritual state, they were serving Hashem with the back. Therefore, there was a possibility for the war of Amalek, and that's why the Torah emphasizes that when did Amalek attack you? On your way going out of Mitzrayim. According to all the above, will be understood what we asked in the beginning of the Maimer. Why does this say all about by Amalek that you have to remember and you have to destroy him? And it doesn't say by the 7 nations, even though even though by the 7 nations it said you shouldn't let them live. But you don't have the idea of Timcha Zecher Amalek. You don't have to erase their animals that are called by the name and all the different things and constantly remembering and not forgetting. Even someone who his avoida in conquering the 7 nations is complete. That's what the 7 nations in Eretz Yisrael correspond to. The Shekavash Zayin Hamidus Shaloi, he conquered his own 7 emotional traits. What does it mean that he does not let any soul live? His avodah in his thought, speech, and deed is complete. So he conquered the 7 emotions. He conquered the 7 character traits. And his thought, speech, and deeds, his garment is also complete. The canal, like we said before, even when the head is removed, the body, which is made up of all the 248 limbs and the 365 blood vessels, it's complete, meaning he's complete in his Torah mitzvahs. Still in all, it's still possible that Amalek can have some type of control over him. Because even though he's doing all of this, but he's doing all of the above without passion, without emotion, without excitement. Amalek can cause the separation and removal of the understanding in the head, not to direct the body. This is also what's brought down the Medrash. What's a good analogy for Amalek? And Rashi brings down the similar thing. For example, a person that put his child on his shoulders and they went out and they went onto the road, and while they were walking, whatever the child wanted, he wanted this fruit, his father reached for it and gave it to him. He wanted something else, the father reached for him and gave for him, and so they're traveling, so they're walking down the road. They met up with someone on the road. So the son that was sitting on his father's shoulders told the person that they met, Abba, did you see my father anywhere? In other words, all of a sudden he was completely oblivious to the fact that he was being carried on his father. Aviv says, the father told his son, you don't know where I am. He threw him off of him. And the dog came and bit him. Amalek is likened to a dog that's biting the Eden because they forgot that Hashem is the one that's giving them the man and giving them the food and giving them all the different things and protecting them and the Anani HaKavod and so on and so forth. All of a sudden they forget about Hashem. So Hashem said, let's see if you forget about me when Amalek comes. What does this mean? Also from this medrash it's indicated the koi gam b'mish avodas Hashem shloi b'shleimus. It's referring to someone whose service of Hashem is complete. How so? Where do we see in this mashal that the person's service of Hashem is complete? Because he's considering that he's riding on Hashem's shoulders. To ride on Hashem's shoulders, obviously, you have to be a person of stature spiritually. And in this very place, in this very level, Amalek comes and throws in doubts, where is his father, etc. The reason why Amalek can come and to throw and to make the person cold and to throw in doubts, even someone whose avodah is complete, it's because he has a chutzpah without a crown. There is an idea of a chutzpah, the Chazal use the term with a crown. In other words, a person has a reason to be chutzpahdik. He's a king, he has a crown, he has a reason to be haughty. He shouldn't be, but there's at least some logic to it. Amalek's chutzpah was without a crown. There's no logic, there's no reason. So therefore he can overwhelm the Yid. The Medrash brings down that Yisro and Amalek are the opposites of one another. Yisro, when he heard about all the great miracles, he came to join the Jewish people. Amalek, when he heard about the Eden going out of Egypt and all the miracles that occurred to them, so that inflamed him that I need to attack the Eden. So he says, the very fact that we say they're opposites, even to say that something is an opposite, must be some type of relationship, even though a negative relationship. What's the relationship? According to what we said before, it'll be understood. Yisro is called Yisro from the word extra, that he added another portion of the Torah where he gave Moshe Rabbeinu advice about how to set up a court system so that Moshe Rabbeinu shouldn't have to be the only one that will explain Torah to the Yidden. So he added a whole portion of the Torah. That's why it's called Yisro from the word Yeter. Yisro is about causing an increase in Torah. As opposed to Amalek, his idea is the total opposite of this. Even someone that's involved in Torah mitzvahs, Amalek throws into him doubts. That's what it says. You should remember what Amalek did to you. Remembrance itself is not only so that you should battle him, but Chassidus explains the very remembrance is the way we counter the spiritual Amalek. The manner of battling the level of Amalek is through the mitzvah of remembering Amalek. Like it's explained in the Ramadim that speak about this topic, the brain part that has to do with memory is the level of Chachma that's higher than Bina. Like it's known where it says, beyond your throne of glory, there is no forgetfulness. Meaning, but in the throne of glory, there could be forgetfulness. The throne has to do with Bina. That's explained in this and also in Nigla, in other words, of the Alter Rebbe in his laws of Torah study, where he speaks about how a person has to learn Torah, make sure not to forget it, and so on. That he says the inyan hashikha shaykh rak ma'ilam akisei ulamata. That the idea of forgetfulness is only applicable from the world of the throne and below. The world of the throne is usually associated with the level of the world of Beriya, the second of the four worlds of Atzilus, Beriya, Yitzir, Asiya. And we know the world of the throne, that is also where Bina Atzilus comes down to the world of the throne. The Kisei, Hisfiras Abina. So what's the point? The point is that still, in whatever the level of the throne is, there is a concept of forgetfulness. There's a possibility of forgetfulness. As opposed to Chachma, which is Lifnei Chisach V'Decha. Lifnei does not mean only in the presence of, but Lifnei can mean prior to, higher than the level of Kisei, higher than the level of Bina, the level of Chachma. Over there is no forgetfulness. That's what it says, remember, do not forget. We need to draw down from the sphere of Chachma, through drawing off from the sphere of Chachma, that ensures and that counters the negative of Amalek. The idea is through drawing down from the level of Chachma that's in the head. Through this we nullify the effect of Amalek, the influence of Amalek, to separate the head from the body. And through this, we afterwards come. We arrive at the perfection and completion of going out of Mitzrayim. I will raise you up Mitzrayim, from the affliction of Mitzrayim al Eretz to a good and broad land. Through nullifying Amalek, we come to a level that's beyond going out of Mitzrayim. Going out of Mitzrayim, it's only subjugating the Klippa. Like we said before, when the Eden went out of Mitzrayim, they ran away from Mitzrayim, because the Klippa was still there, so they had to subjugate it because it was still present. But where they are coming to, to a good and comfortable land, in Yenei there's no battles, there's no fighting anymore, because the Klippa was transformed. Second paragraph. In a similar vein is an idea of remembering Amalek and the war against Amalek every single day in the service of a person. The Hinei, when a person arises from his sleep, he becomes a new being, he becomes a new creature, that is completely completely a new being. That's why he begins his avodah in a manner of saying that I am moida to you, I accept you, I believe in you, you are our God. That we say at the beginning of the day, when we are not yet able to mention Hashem's name. The simple sense is because before Negelvasser, but the Rebbe goes even on a deeper level, because as we know, in the morning, the person's neshama did not yet expand in his entire body. The neshama is only in his nostrils, like it says, that he blew the neshama into his nostrils. So there's a state when the person's first arising and he still hasn't yet expressed his inner soul. So his neshama has not yet expanded in his entire body. Chazal say that before davening, the neshama is still in the person's nostrils because it didn't have a chance to flower and to blossom within the person. The aim is totally ba'adam. It's independent of the person. In other words, it's not the person's fault that his neshama is still in his nostril. This is what it is when a person first wakes up. That the neshama is only in his nostrils. That's the idea of the neshama being in the nostrils only and not expansive. That is similar to when the Eden went out of Mitzrayim, that we said that their emunah was in a very minor state, because they were still at the beginning of the Avodah. The same thing every morning at Moed Ani, we're at the beginning of our Avodah. But after Moed Ani, a person needs to do his service in the service of davening. As we know, the Zohar says, Shas Loisa, Shas Krov, the time of davening is a time of battle. During davening, he prepares himself for the war of refining the sparks in the world. Literally eating, where you have to battle yourself to eat in such a way that you are elevating the sparks and not in such a way that you're being dragged down into the clippers. It's also he's preparing himself for his avodah in the study of Torah. Why is the study of Torah called also something that he's preparing himself for? Torah is also called bread. Go do bread with my bread. Through a proper meditation and contemplation during davening. Comes to such a stage that he studies Torah in an appropriate manner with the appropriate intentions, not for self-aggrandizement and so on. And also that the head that studies the Torah influences the body and makes the body better. And his avodah is out of vitality and passion because of his davening. Once he's already gone through those stages, he comes to the state of a conquering of the good and broad land. What does it mean, conquering the good and broad land? In every person's avoid, that means, like the Alter Rebbe says, that the body is considered a miniature city that two kings are battling over. He makes in his own minor city of his body that it should be the greatness, Hashem should be great and very praised in the city of God, that the body becomes the city of God where Hashem is praised in. And afterwards he draws this down in his portion in the world and in the entire world. Through the avodah in all these matters. We come speedily to the idea that Hashem says, I will surely erase the memory of Amalek. When we do and we fulfill what we've been commanded, that you shall surely erase the memory of Amalek. Which is two different psukim that says in the Torah. But one is our obligation to erase Amalek now, and then there's Hashem will complete it when Mashiach comes. In such a way that the war of Hashem is Amalek from generation to generation. Targum Yonason, like we brought before, from the Targum Yonason, Medara the Alman Dain, from the generation of this world, Medara the Mashiach, from the generation of Mashiach, Medara the Alman Asim, from the generation of the world to come, Bebias Mashiach Tzedkenu, and the coming Mashiach Tzedkenu, Yavev Yigalenu, Elchenu Kamis Larsenu will come and redeem us and lead us upright to our land, and all this speedily in our days.